Let's speak to Rick Gates, former deputy campaign manager to President Trump. Thanks for coming on the programme, Mr. Gates. Do you think this is the logical effect of Trump pausing military aid to Ukraine?
Yes, in part I do. I think that what you've seen Donald Trump do over the last 7 days is make sure that the right pressure points are put on President Zelenskyy to get to that end goal of peace. It's amazing that people, after having experienced the first term of Donald Trump, haven't really figured him out yet. And what he is looking at is that end goal, that end result, peace. How do we get there? He works backwards to figure out how the pieces are going to move on the table in order to do that. Some he can control, some he can't. Obviously, the meeting with Zelenskyy on Friday didn't go according to plan, but I think that was more of Zelenskyy's fault. And while the statement is great, and I think it'll be good enough to get things back on track, because Zelenskyy doesn't have a lot of options, it's not a full-blown apology. And I suspect that there will probably be a call at some point between the two of them so Zelenskyy can do that privately, maybe not publicly.
Why do you think this was Zelenskyy's fault that it broke down? Because there is absolutely no doubt, Mr. Gates, that he was rounded on by sections of the American media and the vice president.
Well, sure, and there's a lot to talk about. You want to talk about where that money went? Even Zelenskyy admits that the money went to different, pools of individuals. It didn't all go to what it was supposed to. So when you look at from the American viewpoint of we gave over $170 billion with no accounting, blank check, by Joe Biden.
Sure.
People in America want to know where it went. They want.
Well, people in the United Kingdom do too, Mr. Gates, because obviously the United Kingdom has contributed significantly to Ukraine's war effort. But no British Prime Minister would treat the Ukrainian Prime Minister in the way in which the President and the Vice President did on Friday. And I take your point about Zelenskyy not playing the game in that moment, but there was blame everywhere for that.
Well, let's be very blunt about that. Zelenskyy could have gone and he could have had a much different demeanor, a tone. There are a lot of reasons why people are speculating. Maybe he should have used a translator. His words didn't come across very clear. At the end of the day, I thought his tone was pretty clear. And you don't go into the White House, whether it's a Republican or Democratic president, and behave the way Zelenskyy did, particularly when you look at the buildup to that meeting. And I think that's a piece, Tom, that a lot of people didn't get a chance to see. They saw what happened at the meeting, but there were a number of instances before the meeting that led up to where Zelenskyy was not willing to sign the minerals. He wanted to negotiate. There were a lot of terms that weren't. And by the way, the Americans even said Zelenskyy probably shouldn't come, but he wanted to anyway. And so I think Zelenskyy forced a lot of that situation that happened on Friday.
Do you think that there's another White House invite in the offing shortly, or is this deal going to be signed sort of remotely, as it were? Just get the deal done, get it signed, and we can all move on to the next stage.
Yeah, look, if it takes a White House meeting to get it done, I think this is another thing people mistake about President Trump. Again, he wants to get the deal done. He doesn't care if that requires another meeting at the White House. Obviously, Zelenskyy, I think, would be much more deferential. But if that's what it takes to get it done, he will do that. But in the interim, he's going to continue leveraging pressure to make sure Zelenskyy is focused on exactly what he said in his message a few minutes ago. They want peace. They want a lasting peace. That's something that Zelenskyy did not necessarily communicate very well last week while in Washington. Obviously, his mind has changed now.
He says, we see this agreement, the minerals agreement, as a step toward greater security and solid security guarantees. Is the President of the United States ready to give greater security and solid security guarantees for Ukraine?
Yeah, look, I think President Trump is going to give what he needs to give in order to get the deal done. Does that mean that it's going to be spelled out by letter for letter? No. And that's what Zelenskyy, I think, made part of his mistake. The presence of the United States in Ukraine should be sufficient enough as a deterrent to Russia and as a security guarantee without having to spell out every letter and word in that process. That's something that Zelenskyy is going to have to figure out if he's willing to accept or not. I think that the U.S. is putting itself out there in a very strong way by defending Ukraine on that mineral agreement, by being present in that country. I don't think Russia is going to challenge the U.S. in that situation.
Good to speak to you. Thanks for coming on. Rick Gates, former deputy campaign manager to President Trump.